Joining us now, though, is David Swanson. David is the author of Daybreak, Undoing the Imperial Presidency and Forming a More Perfect Union. David, also the co-founder of the After Downing Street Coalition. David, welcome to the Young Turks. How are you?
Great to be here. Great show. Thanks for having me on.
David, it is easy to, I think I'm certainly guilty of it, or have at least participated in it. The Bush-Cheney era is over, and you're tempted to just be like, okay, we didn't drop a nuclear weapon on anybody. We're all still here, and reasonable people can now begin to undo the damage. But to do that, I think everybody needs to understand the A, magnitude of the damage, and B, the permanent damage that was done that will allow other presidents interested in hoarding power in a dangerous manner, which could well be Barack Obama in some regards. How many of them are going to still participate in the same sort of apparatus that Bush-Cheney set up? So we'll start with the first one. It's a big question, but how much damage did they do? Where's the biggest damage?
Incredible damage. Damage to the structure of our government that will affect every Congress and presidency from here on out. So it's hard to measure because we can't predict the future.
Well, in what way? In what way?
Well, take the power of laws, right? You have a presidency that comes in and makes laws in a brand new way with signing statements, makes laws in a new, extreme way with executive orders, makes laws with secret memos legalizing blatant crimes, and so forth. And then you get a new administration. You could throw out all those signing statements, or you could say, well, I'm going to go over them as they come up case by case and decide which ones I like, and I'm going to write some new ones of my own. Not as numerous, not as egregious as yet, but cementing in place that ability, that power for every future president. And the Supreme Court treats these powers as acceptable once multiple administrations do it without challenge.
So let's be clear. The Bush administration, with the signing statements, the executive orders, the secret memos, it's not like the Obama administration got here and said, hey, no more signing statements, or we'll do signing statements the way they were always done under Ronald Reagan and the first George Bush and Jimmy Carter and so forth, which we might say something about a bill. But Bush's signing statements would be after a bill passed Congress. After Bush signs it, the signing statement would be like, yeah, I've just signed this bill, but the things that are prescribed in it I'm not going to do, and I'm going to do other things.
Right.
So the Obama administration has not abandoned that policy.
No, they put out a statement that said we are only going to use signing statements when we really, really have to, just like we are going to release the White House visitor logs at least from here forward, except when we think national security matters, or we're only going to shout state secrets after we get all our lawyers who work for us to say it's okay. None of these reforms transfer a bit of power to any branch other than what we used to call the executive branch, which was supposed to execute the will of Congress. So we have much better rhetoric, and we don't have as extreme abuses of every different abuse. So Obama's signing statements have not yet been used in as egregious a manner, but he's fixing in place the policy of using these signing statements to make laws, and that's not being stopped by Congress. You couldn't expect a president to give back powers. None of the other presidents have ever given back powers. You'd have to be a saint, not the sort of person who can get elected president. But we ought to be able to compel our Congress to take back those powers, and it ought to be at the top of our list.
Well, how would Congress take back power? What would stop the president? I mean, it's funny, but there's a legitimate question buried somewhere in the fact that you're talking about stuff that is clearly over my pay grade. But what would stop a president from Congress's effort to restrict signing statements to literally add a signing statement to such a bill saying, yeah, I'm going to continue to offer signing statements when I feel they're necessary, or in matters of national security, which is, I presume, what they'd say.
Right. I mean, you might attempt passing a bill and even overriding a veto that says no funding shall be used for any policy authorized solely by a signing statement that violates the bill as written and passed. And then the president could, in an incredible show of arrogance, signing statement that away. or simply choose to violate it and proceed as if it didn't happen. There is something in our Constitution to stop that, to allow Congress to stop that. It's the topic most discussed in our Constitution in greatest detail and the greatest number of times. It's a tool we were expected to use frequently, and we don't. It's called impeachment. And if you do not impeach anyone in the executive branch, if you let Jay Bybee have a lifetime seat on as a judge after writing these torture memos and you won't impeach him, and if you don't subpoena and enforce your subpoenas, then none of your other powers ultimately have any teeth, and a real arrogant affront from the so-called executive is going to override anything.
So then you're also saying that there's a real practical matter to this, that if Congress passed a law about not funding anything that was denied by Congress and was only sort of, in existence because of a signing statement, that even if the president had the audacity, the power-hungry audacity to signing statement, I love that we've turned that into a verb, to signing statement that away, that as we look down the road, there would at least have been a serious attempt made by the Congress to point out that we're not allowing this power to go on unabridged when a future Supreme Court has to look at this.
That could indeed be helpful, and even things that don't have teeth can have power through the Congress has a bully pulpit just like the president. But we have a real problem in that Congress has passed a lot of laws that the current president and other presidents have simply chosen to violate. Congress passed a law signed by Ronald Reagan without a signing statement to make torture a felony. We have our recently departed president and vice president, Dick Cheney, who moved as far as across the river next door to the CIA. We're not completely rid of him, going on television and openly confessing to felonies. And we're not enforcing those laws. And so there are a lot of new rules and new laws and new constitutional amendments we can envision, but we have to be enforcing our laws, or at some point it becomes a charade.
What felonies did Dick Cheney confess to, just so we're clear?
Well, what I have in mind at the moment, they are numerous, but I have in mind violations of the anti-torture statute
right.
and the anti-war crimes statute. And George W. Bush has done the same, gone on television and said, yes, I authorized the torture of that guy. And that's a felony. It's a crime in the U.S. Code with life in prison and potentially death, which is something I oppose, but that's in there.
Don't you think that and Cenk and I, when we were doing the show during the first of all, let me ask you a little background on signing statements real quickly. I mean, signing statements seem completely made up. There's nothing in the Constitution about signing statements. I mean, we have a system by which Congress debates a law and passes a law. The president signs it. If he doesn't sign it, they can override it. But once he signed it, it's law. Who decided that you could sort of just put your own 2 cents in afterwards? When did that start, and did it ever have any significance, real practical significance, before George Bush and Dick Cheney?
Yeah, and bear in mind that signing statements is chapter 1 of my book, which
right.
is very lengthy. This is one abuse of many. But the first signing statement was from a guy who lived a couple miles from where I'm sitting here in Virginia, James Monroe. And, the accumulation of power in the presidency began when George Washington was there. None of this is totally new. But the accelerated pace of this shift of power was tremendous under Bush and Cheney, and in the case of signing statements, it was almost brand new. There are a handful of cases where past presidents attempted in some manner to say, I won't comply with everything in this bill. And when Ronald Reagan tried that, Congress fought back. They cut off funding for the Justice Department. They took steps that had real teeth to them until Reagan complied.
David, let me jump in because, and I realize your book, I've now undoing the Daybreak, undoing the imperial presidency, forming a more perfect union. I've allowed you to speak about Chapter 1. We have less than 30 seconds. Other than Congress asserting itself, or is that enough? Is there a way to undo this so that down the road we don't have presidents that, by the way, will offend conservatives? I mean, some president, some extreme liberal president could come in and say, yeah, I'm going to take all your guns.
Well, we have civil suits that are moving forward. We have state and local approaches. We have all kinds of angles from outside the country and within it. I would send people to prosecutebushcheney.org for a million ways to help. but we do have to take back power through our Congress, and Congress won't do it unless we compel them to. So this is a call for activism.
I'm not entirely sure Congress will even do it then. But David Swanson,
I'm not promising. I'm saying we got no other way out of this mess.
Interesting guy, David Swanson. The book Daybreak: Undoing the Imperial Presidency, Forming a More Perfect Union, just came out in the middle of this month. David, thank you very much for joining us on the Young Turks.
My pleasure.
Can't get enough of the Young Turks? Well, then subscribe to the TYT's YouTube channel. What's the matter with you?